You really cannot overestimate the importance of our next topic, psychological safety in your team. Here to talk about it, Marta Blaut, a People and Culture Partner at HR Hints and Mental Health Center. Hello, Marta. How are you?
Hello, I'm very good. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, Łukasz. Long time no see, but
Long
here we
time no
are.
see, indeed. In our quick prep conversation, I mentioned that I happen to work quite often as a public speaking coach with CEOs and management boards of different corporations. And one of the most common things you come across is that those people, not only in the presentation context, but everyday management context, very often fail to see how they are perceived by others. Why? Very often because of, well, oversized egos. You know how it works. So when you go down to the management level, we often think that we are fully aware of our qualities, of the image we project on others, and the characteristics of our behavior and what kind of chemistry it creates in the team. But how do you think? How important is it to do something to make sure that the image you have of yourself, confronted with the reality of your team, is more or less one and the same thing?
Okay, great question. Thank you so much for that. So I would say the first and the most important thing that every leader needs to know and be aware of is the impact that they have on the organization and on the people they manage. So they need to be aware how important it is what they do, how they speak, how they react to certain behaviors, because this is how role modeling works. And in psychological safety, you cannot overestimate the importance of the role model that is a leader, simply saying. And this is what I'm gonna talk about today, not only about psychological safety, what it is, what it's not, and so on, but also I want to give some kind of hints or tips to the leaders so that they can think about it, take it, and maybe implement it in their teams.
Sounds
Is
like
it?
something really,
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting. So let me leave you for a couple of minutes with our audience and a short presentation, after which I will come back with a question or two. Enjoy.
Okay. Thank you so much. I even produced a presentation for you, so that hopefully it will be pleasant for you to watch it. So, as Łukasz said, I'm a psychologist, I'm a trainer, but also on a daily basis, I work as an HR consultant, and I work with funders, CEOs, to help them establish processes and routines that will enable strong organizational culture. And today I'll be talking about psychological safety, as I said, what that is, what that is not, and why it is so important to make space for psychological safety and to be aware and to know what happens if there is no psychological safety at your workplace. Okay, so I wanted to start with some story of mine, because I remember when I was a kid and I was maybe, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years old, and we had a very, very demanding math teacher. And I remember being, so terrified each time she started firing away questions. She threw questions at random students, asking them about, some mysterious math equations, let's say, and so on. And I remember that, I felt like I am inadequate and I'm, below average. And I can still feel, the sweat on my hands and my heart beating so fast. I also remember how relieved I was when she didn't call out my name. I was so afraid not to know all these, answers. I felt like, the core of my character will be judged in this very moment when I don't know the answers for her questions. So, as you can imagine, instead of asking for clarification or simply, admitting that I don't know answers, that I'm not good at maths, I talked to myself, be quiet and you will ask someone later on. And It took me years to really realize that I was not alone in that feeling. What is more, that it's not only applicable to school kids. Many grown-ups feel exactly the same way, even if they hold responsible positions and they should be confident in what they do. Yeah, I just wanted to change the slide. So the same story happens very often, as I said, in grown-ups world. And the same story happened in Chernobyl nuclear plant. Probably you know that story. I'm sure you know that story. 1986. Very overworked engineers were trying to solve the problem with reactor number 4. And when they were approaching their boss to report safety concerns, they were yelled at and they were threatened, and as a consequence, without asking any questions, they just blindly followed the orders, ignoring signals that were coming from safety systems. And as a consequence, as you know, 4,000 people died in this accident. It's not the only story that I can tell you. You probably know another story, the story that happened between 2018 2019. Boeing company, 2 terrible air crashes happened at that time, 2018 and 2019, with Boeing 737. And 2 crashes happened, 346 people killed. Both accidents happened because of faulty design feature in the Boeing aircraft. And although safety concerns was being reported by all these engineers and technological staff, company ignored that. And hopefully you can see that on the slide. Those messages that you can see, these are messages that were being sent among people from the company. They had been sending all those messages, but they didn't believe that anyone would listen to them. And one message that you can't see here that even said, this plane was designed by clowns that were supervised by monkeys. And I could go on like this, telling you stories like this. You probably know similar stories from your own life. But what is the most important is to see the connection among all these 3 stories. The connection is the fact that all these people, including me, were afraid to speak up, to disagree. Right? What was lacking was psychological safety, simply saying. And psychological safety is shared belief that the team is safe for interpersonal risk-taking. And you might know that this definition was coined by Amy Edmondson. And she also says that psychologically safe places, in such places, people know that they will not be punished for speaking up, for making mistakes, suggesting bold ideas, raising concerns, disagreements with the authority, and so on and so forth. So now I wanted you to imagine that you work in a team in which everyone has a voice. People exchange thoughts and ideas. They speak their mind. They're not afraid to ask questions if something isn't clear. When they disagree, they also clearly express that. And more importantly, people actually listen to each other. They understand, each other's talking point, and they even address those talking points. They ask for explanation. And this is how working in psychologically safe team would look like. And according to Gallup Institute, and you can see those statistics on the slide, by doubling the number of employees who feel safe at the workplace, organization will reduce the rotation by 27%, will increase productivity, and decrease the amount of accidents at the workplace. And now I want you to think for a little moment, what's the consequence of not having psychologically safe workplace? How many ideas were discarded by the simple fact? How much innovations were lost? Okay, and how many lives could have been saved if people felt comfortable enough to speak up and ask questions. And I imagine that there are lots of leaders here, and some of you could say, oh, I do it all the time. I ask my team for opinions. They have space, safe space to speak their mind. They can discuss things with me and so on. But there is a little misconception about how all this works. If you are a leader, you must, as you can see on the slide, walk the walk and talk the talk. Because some of us, we are great with words, but we are not that great as at acting on those words. So in many cases, leaders, they do actually ask their teams about opinions. They want to know what other people think about the decisions and so on. But when they receive answers, sometimes they might become, defensive, a little bit, territorial, etc. So by this kind of behavior, they send this very powerful message to their teams, be quiet. It's no good for you to raise these concerns, and people quickly learn that it makes no sense actually to raise concerns, to speak up. It's no beneficial for you, simply saying. Okay, and that's of course a shame, because we already know that, psychology knows that in psychologically safe spaces, people, teams have space to grow, simply saying, because psychological safety impacts group performance, as you can see, team creativity, team learning, team confidence, team synergy, and so on and so forth. So there are lots of benefits of having psychologically safe spaces. Okay, so what you can do as a leader to create such space. So first of all, set expectations when mistakes are made. When there is some kind of uncertainty about the desired, accepted solutions. So in other words, we could say that you need to frame the work. So tell them, show them, what behaviors do you expect in such situations? How do you behave in such situations? It's a good practice also to maybe sit with your team and together with them prepare some kind of guidance to show them, to write it down, what kind of behaviors we want to have in our team. The second thing, admit in front of the team that you also make mistakes, right? Draw it out. Show them that you make mistakes, that it's okay to make mistakes, that you even can learn from your mistakes. The third thing, be aware that hierarchy at work, it diminishes the desire to experiment. And this is what Łukasz, you said at the beginning, right? We need to be aware that we as leaders, we have an impact on other people. And sometimes we need to actively include other people. And we need to create this inclusive space to encourage other people to speak up. There is a proof, like scientific proof, that consultative and supportive management style positively correlates with psychological safety. What else? Appreciate voices, opinions, appreciate input, encourage people to share even the silliest questions. They say that there are no silly questions. So if there are no silly questions, people just give me your questions. This is what leaders should do. And the other way around, like, you need to ask questions and you need to listen to what your people are saying. Good thing also is to consult your decisions with your team whenever possible. Of course, it's not like you always can consult everything, but do it whenever possible. Show interest, show concern for people as people, not only for people as employees. And all this will have a positive impact on psychological safety at your workplace. What is also very, very important, especially in this, difficult times in which we live in, especially after pandemics in remote work, we need to really take care of our employees' mental health, and leaders also are responsible for that. So leaders need to learn, read, talk about mental health, and whenever you do see your employees struggling with something, you need to know, how to help them, how to navigate them. Maybe you can suggest where they can go and, receive some help. For example, we've got this mental health helpline, which is a great place for people to ask for help. And last but not least, talk to your team about ups and downs, about successes, but also about failures. Talking about failures, especially when it's done by a leader, it really increases this comfort that people have. And my favorite routine or practice that I can suggest to all of you are those fuck up nights, fuck up meetings. These are meetings during which people led by leaders, they share all their failures. So they talk one by one about, projects that in which they failed, right? And by this, they also learn lessons. What do we want to avoid in the future, right? What my leader would do if this kind of situation would occur to him or to her. So yeah, that would be it. Łukasz, do you have any questions? Do you like the topic?
I certainly like the topic. In fact, I believe it's one of the most important topics ever, because without the right chemistry, psychology in the team, you never get even close to team authenticity, to motivation, the very fundamentals. And I'm sure many of us would like to work longer but feel deeply unauthentic at work. Instead of working, say, 4 hours a day, but hate every minute of it because of the density of the psychology behind it. You've just reminded me of a 2013 film. The title was Her. I think it was Spike Jonze's film with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson. It was about AI-powered virtual assistant, a female voice assisting a lonely man and evolving to learn his needs in the process. And I remember two of my married friends going to cinema to watch it. And when they came out, I asked them about this film. And the husband says, I loved it so much, such an interesting, stimulating, thought-provoking film. And his wife said, I hated it so much. So based on that, one quick question for you. There was a reason why I started with this public speaking training for CEOs analogy. Because it's very clear for me, based on a very quick needs analysis, just watching a couple of presentations by people with ego size issues, that you can easily show those people that there are things they simply don't see about themselves, even though they've been living with those things their entire lives. Sometimes it's about body language, sometimes it's about narcissism, sometimes it's about gestures or various tiny little things that others may find annoying. So my question for you, Marta, would be this. If we know there are things about ourselves we don't see, what's the best thing we can do to confront this ignorance with someone else? How should we go about it?
Okay. Another great question, and I'm afraid my answer will not be that great, because the answer is simple. You need to simply ask people, ask them for feedback, right? And a psychological...
Yeah, but in a hierarchical environment, they will not tell you things. They will tell you politically correct answers. They will be afraid to risk their employment, their job, their relationship with you. So that's why it's so tricky, I suppose.
Yeah, true. I think these things are changing nowadays. When we go from a very big picture in which organizations are ruled from the top to the bottom, and now my impression is that we go more into this model in which we are more focused on teams rather than big corporations and the bigger picture. But maybe it's like it's just piece of the picture that I can see. And maybe in like big corporations world, it's still very stiff and hierarchical. But if you work in so much hierarchical organization, stiff organization, I think it's very, very important to support management and to create space also for managers to exchange feedback among them. Just because we know maybe your reportee, your employee will not give you this feedback, just because we know this psychological phenomenon that people might be afraid to speak up, to raise concerns, to maybe give you what we call constructive feedback. So maybe instead of that, HR departments could be responsible for creating space for managers to help them to see each other's not only failures but also successes. Maybe this characteristic behaviors that might be difficult for the people, and it will be much easier for them to talk about it than to encourage their reportees to point out their flaws, because probably, as you said, this one will never happen. So that would be
So I guess it's safe for us, Marta, to assume, in conclusion, that you can never overestimate the importance of workplace psychology. And there's probably a lot we don't see about ourselves, the way we behave, the kind of image and attitudes we build through our micro behaviors, whether it's microaggressions or small things that are really dependent on any given mood or any given day, very small things that can affect long-term relationships and the quality of those.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marta.
And
It's been
just
a
one
pleasure to have you with us.
Yeah, just one thing to add at the end, that we need to also take under consideration the fact that we work remotely right now, and it's much more difficult to see all those small expressions, body language, and so on. So knowing that, it's even more important to invest in managers so that they are able, to understand and embrace all those changes that modern world has for us. So yeah, that was the last sentence that I wanted to say. So thank you so much, and I wish you all, psychologically safe workplaces.
Exactly. Thank you. Marta Blaut, People Culture Partner at HR Hints and Mental Health Center. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.